Good evening everyone and welcome to another Ordinary Council meeting for Monday the 10th of July 2023. Can I please ask all those in the gallery to please be seated and be quiet please as the meeting has started. Thank you. Item 1, meeting opening. Item 1.1, attendance. Ms Weatherall, are there any apologies?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have 2 apologies this evening, one from Councillor Jim Mehmeti and one from Councillor Angela Long.
Thank you. Item 1.2, acknowledgement of traditional owners of the land. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Bunurong people, and pay respect to their elders past and present. We recognise and respect their continuing connections to climate, culture, country and waters, and we also pay our respect and acknowledge all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and their elders present here today in acknowledging their journey. Item 1.3, offering of prayer, reflection or affirmation. As part of Council's commitment to recognising the cultural and spiritual diversity of our community, the prayer, reflection or affirmation this evening will be offered by Imam Ismet Perdik Efendija from the Islam Bosnian Herzegovinian Mosque, a member of the Greater Dandenong Interfaith Community. Please all be standing.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ismet Perdik. I'm Imam of the Bosnia-Herzegovina Islamic Society Noble Park. I'm glad to be here tonight to share with you a beautiful word of prayer that what you do for this community be better, bigger and more useful for everyone. Thank you so much and may God bless and protect this country and its people. My prayer will be in Arabic because they are selected prayers from the Quran. They are the prayers of the best people who are in the mission of messengers from God, calling people to good, doing good and spreading it among people, so that life would be holy and beautiful, full of love, mercy and respected among people. Please listen to my prayers. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا ربنا اتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير. In translation, Our Lord, give us in this world that which is good, and in the hereafter that which is good, and protect us from the punishment of the fire. Our Lord, we have wronged ourselves, and if you don't forgive us and have mercy upon us, we will surely be among the losers. Our Lord, so forgive us our sins, and remove from us our misdeeds, and cause us to die among the righteous. Our Lord, grant us from yourself mercy, and prepare for us from our affair right guidance. Our Lord, perfect for us our light and forgive us. Indeed, you are over all things competent. Thank you for listening. I wish you success and all good. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessing of God be upon all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Imam Ismet. Thank you so much. I'd like to also acknowledge that we have the Young Leaders of 2023 for the City of Greater Dandenong in the gallery tonight. So just thank you for being here and thank you for your interest in leadership in the City of Greater Dandenong. Our future is in great hands when we've got great leaders like yourselves coming forward. Thank you. Item 1.4, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting.
Happy to move that.
Moved by Councillor Troung, seconded by Deputy Mayor Councillor Formoso. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 1.5, disclosures of interest. Ms Weatherall, are there any disclosures of interest this evening?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Item 1.6, adoption of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes. Moved by Councillor Garad, seconded by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 2, Officers' Reports, Part 1. 2.1, Documents for Tabling. 2.1.1, Petitions and Joint Letters. Moved by Councillor Tan, seconded by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 2.2, Statutory Planning Applications. 2.2.1, Town Planning Application Number 1536 to 1538, Heatherton Road, Dandenong, Planning Application Number PLN 22/0063.
Happy to move that.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Councillor Formoso,
Second.
seconded by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 3, Question Time Public. Ms Weatherall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And our first question is from Zoe Mole of Springvale concerning tree protection local law, and I understand she's in the crowd. She'd like to come up to the microphone, please, and she can read her question. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for having me tonight. My name is Zoe Mole, a City of Greater Dandenong resident who loves trees. There is no doubt trees serve a vastly important role in the health and well-being of our community. Just go stand peacefully for some time in the church that is Tatterson Park's bushland and wetland area. I don't think I need to mention all the way trees are an asset to us, as I know Council understands their value. Advocacy for trees pertains to many of Council's action plans, and to protect our remaining tree canopy coverage, it's a no-brainer that Council should be adopting the proposed tree protection plan and nothing less. Climate is changing, knowledge base is growing, environmentalism is on the rise. We know better than to turn a blind eye on all those backyard trees currently being cut down. Ones that could have been saved had the resident known more about the importance. My question, assuming Council does what is right and approves of the proposed tree protection plan, can the new policy be launched alongside a community education campaign, advising residents to do their very best not to remove harmless trees on their property for reasons such as trees make shade, they provide habitat and food source for species vital to the web of life. They absorb groundwater and help clean the air. Backyard fruiting trees also represent a localized low food miles food source that should be tapped into. When we know better, we do better. So what steps can Council take to ensure CGD residents have the best shot at fully understanding the role trees play in our lives before they make the decision to cut them down?
Thank you, Ms Mole. I'll put that question to... Sorry, in the gallery, can I please ask for silence? Thank you. I'll put that question to Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you through yourself to Zoe. Thank you for the question, Zoe. And the answer is quite simply yes. We can and will be rolling them out concurrently. The tree protection on private land local law is proposed to work alongside the wider program of the Urban Forest Strategy 2021 to 2028 to increase canopy coverage across the municipality. With the canopy coverage within the municipality currently at around 9%, more protection is needed. The tree protection local law primarily seeks to protect significant trees on private land, as they are the trees that provide most benefit from an environmental, aesthetic, social and financial perspective to our community. The proposed local law is one tool in a suite of tools contained in the Urban Forest Strategy, as I had mentioned earlier, where the key initiative is community engagement and educational focus. Council will engage with our community and educate on, and I'll go through a number of points: improving the perception and knowledge of trees, improving landscape outcomes, including canopy trees and new developments, understanding the benefits of reducing the urban heat island effect, or the urban heat island, never mind just the effect, better understanding the link between health and trees, and that's both physiological and psychological health, and it's understood that a community that understands the benefits of trees is more likely to retain existing trees and plant new vegetation. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Mole.
That was fantastic. A good answer. Thank you. I look forward to the educational campaign.
Thank you, Ms. Mole. Ms. Weatherall, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our next question is from Ashley Morgan-Shea of Upper Ferntree Gully, who I believe is here in today's audience. No? If not, Madam Mayor, are you happy if I read it out?
Yes, please.
I
Thank you.
submitted a question to 26th of June meeting and have not received an answer, so I ask again. Council's CAT survey consultation in March 2023 was open Australia-wide, allowing multiple responses from a person using different browsers or different devices anonymously. How many of the respondents were anonymous? And of those who were not anonymous, what steps were taken to ensure they are legitimate? Individual responses, for example, were the names and addresses checked against electoral rolls? If not, how is this a credible community survey? Please note that a community CAT program cannot be run successfully with a curfew. Curfews worse than the problem of homeless stray cats, also costing all residents over 6 times more trapping and killing. A community cat is outside at night and the program reduces homeless cats quickly. Worldwide, it is a scientific best practice to save cats and wildlife. I include links to the scientific research published in the International Journal of Animals with the main points in the conversation. Key issues, video link on community cat programs in Australia Animals. And that concludes her question. Can I ask the Director, City Planning, Design Amenity, Mr. Bosman, to respond, please?
Thank you, Mr. Bosman.
Madam Mayor, thank you again through yourself to Ashley. I do believe that these issues were canvassed when the matter was tabled before Council and, in fact, within the Officer report. But nonetheless, let me advise that community consultation was open to the community from the 27th of February 2023 to 31 March 2023, where a total of 356 official submissions were received. All 356 submissions received was considered to be legitimate submissions, and there were no anonymous submissions amongst them. Council ran a comprehensive community consultation program during this time, reaching a large portion of the community utilising many techniques, including having your say survey, three drop-in sessions held at Dandenong, Springvale and Keysborough, Greater Dandenong Council News Magazine, distribution of A5 flyers through mailing list, distribution of colour posters, advertising on interactive screens within Dandenong and Springvale civic centres, targeted social media, media releases, information and survey on Council's website, meeting attendance and presentations, and direct engagement with many community groups. It was a very extensive and bespoke engagement exercise. The key consideration throughout this engagement was to ensure as many opportunities as possible for all members of our community to provide their feedback. Debate on and consideration in opposition to the CAT curfew was had on the night, and at its meeting on the 26th of June 2023, Council resolved to implement a dusk to dawn curfew. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Ms. Weatherall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And our next question is from Kelvin Granger and Dean Hurlston, and it concerns cost shifting from state government. And the question is, can Council please advise the dollar amount of cost shifting from state government they estimate they incurred in the 2022-23 financial year? And I'll be providing the answer, Madam Mayor. Cost shifting from the federal and more significantly from the Victorian state government has been a major financial issue for many years. It poses a serious risk to both the ability to deliver services and local government's financial sustainability. The current economic climate has also seen an increase in the cost of services and infrastructure and reduced grants, making cost shifting a heightened issue once again. Traditional areas where cost shifting continues to occur include libraries, school crossing supervision and maternal and child health. We're also experiencing an expansion into non-traditional areas including compliance, building services and Victorian Building Authority requirements, CCTV systems, waste services, significant increases in the landfill levy, climate change and response mitigations and disaster recovery. Whilst the quantum is not yet available for the 22-23 financial year, cost shifting that is currently known has been taken into consideration in the current budget and long-term financial plan. Expected that cost shifting will continue to put pressure on future budgets in a rate-capped environment, and there will be collectively considered as Council undergoes a service review improvement program and revenue optimisation strategy. Council continues to monitor the impacts of cost shifting and will advocate to the MAV as this is a broader sector-wide concern. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Vidal.
Our next question is from Andrew Hamer of Dandenong South and concerns Progress Street crossing closure. I don't believe he's here this evening. The question is, since the last meeting, the Level Crossing Removal Project, LXRP, have gone to contract on the Progress Street crossing closure and diversion of all traffic down Fowler Road, Dandenong South. As outlined previously, local businesses have significant concerns about the safety and congestion of this option and requested a genuinely independent traffic impact study. Given that Council will have to take over Fowler Road at the completion of the LXRP works and the concerns of all the businesses in Nathan and Fowler Roads that this will not be adequate, did Council endorse in any way the use of Fowler Road to become what is going to be a trunk connector road? Does Council accept the LXRP's assertion that the solution will not cause serious safety and congestion issues identified by the community? If so, on what evidence? Can I ask our Acting Director, Business Engineering and Major Projects, Mr Kevin Van Boxtel, to respond, please?
Thank you. Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Andrew, for your question. The Minister for Planning designated this project under Section 95 of the Major Transport Projects Facilitation Act on the 10th of March this year. There is no requirement for Council to endorse plans or any works within the declared project area. Council has not formally endorsed or accepted any aspects of this project, and we would not typically expect this to occur for such a declared project. The Level Crossing Removal Project team has been liaising with Council's officers through some of the early stages of design to share data and Council's design standards, etc., and respond to queries raised by our officers. Council has sought an urgent briefing by the authority for our councillors to discuss all relevant matters, which will then inform Council's position. Our expectation is that the project team will continue to consider and respond to concerns raised by both Council and members of our community.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Item 4, Officers' Reports, Part 2. 4.1, Policy and Strategy. 4.1.1, Review of Council Policies, Investment Policy 2023. Moved by Councillor Lim, seconded by Councillor Tan. Are there any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my question to the relevant officer regarding the annual review, which has been amended from section 5.9 to item 11 within this item. The question I've got, given the annual review, and I know the fluctuations given the current market conditions of our investments, is moving to a quarterly based report, which is going to be presented to Council. I'm not sure whether that's in terms of a CBS or in terms of InfoSum. But can I just get a breakdown of, I suppose, what items are going to be included within that quarterly review, and then also how the benchmark is being undertaken and by whom?
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Ms Hanson.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, Councillor Dark, could I just get a little bit more information on your question and which pages or context you're referring to?
Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. On page number 88, section 5.9 has the annual review of the investments that are being proposed, and it states that it's being removed or moved to section number 11 on page 90. And then it states that instead of the annual report, a quarterly report will be provided to Council. The report will detail the investment portfolio in terms of the holdings and impact of changes in market value since the previous report. And then it's got some further things which have been crossed out as well. I just want to get an understanding of exactly what that quarterly report is going to, I suppose, entertain in terms of where the investments are at, particularly given if they're long-term investments versus short-term investments.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dark. Ms Hanson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Councillor Dark, I think you're referring to how we report Council's investments through the quarterly financial report. That will continue. So, Council will continue to provide information to Council on green investments or any sort of sustainable, responsible investments through that report. Also, the rating and the amount held both short-term and long-term. So that will continue under the existing and previous policy.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Ms Hanson. Any further questions, Councillor Dark?
Councillor, go.
No? Do you have a question?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my next question regarding the green investments, which is certainly a significant part of this policy, and the benchmarking of that being then provided to this council. Is there going to be a benchmark comparison to the green investments versus those which are potentially linked to, say, the fossil fuel industry, however that may be see fit? Because the way that I've understood the policy, and I'm happy to be proven incorrect, is that the acquired groups, the ADIs, are the big four banks and a couple others, and the big four banks, for the most part, have investments in a range of different factors with the fossil fuel industry, whether it's in the supply chain or directly within those mining companies in the projects. How exactly then it's being forecast that we'll be investing in green industries, and then also a comparison against those that potentially benchmark that aren't in the green bonds?
Thank you, Councillor. Ms Hanson, please.
Yes. Through you, Madam Mayor. So, Councillor Dark, I'm not sure about the benchmarking, but the policy actually indicates that Council will prefer those that favour or less fossil fuel. We can't benchmark it. We're extremely restricted by the Local Government Act on where we can invest council funds, and I think the report indicates we have the option to actually invest in approved deposit institutions as defined under the Act. And by, I think, the financial, I can't remember what it is, but there's a guideline that indicates that definition. So all we can do is actually increase and place council's investments in approved deposit institutions that have a lower fossil fuel investment. There is an actual web link that we can actually use that actually indicates where some of the big banks have invested and how much they've actually invested in fossil fuel investments. So that's the guide that we can use. In terms of green deposits, what we're actually finding is a lot of the actual institutions, they call it greenwashing at the moment. So a lot of the banks aren't providing green accredited investments. One of the ones that we have invested in is Westpac, if they have. I'm not sure where that's at the moment, and I'll have a look at the quarterly report for June that'll be presented to Council. But what we're finding is that we're having a lot of institutions that aren't providing green investments simply because of greenwashing. And I think they're a little bit sceptical at the moment about providing that, especially where you invest money in an institution and then that institution then invests into another one, etc. So it's very hard to benchmark or know where council is actually investing its money, if that provides some clarity.
Thank you, Ms Hanson. Any further questions? Thank you. Councillor Garad.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And actually, Councillor Dark has covered some of the issues I wanted to cover. But just further on the question of investigating where the banks, because we know the four big banks are the major contributors to financing the fossil fuel industry, particularly big coal and big gas products. So I'm wondering what our methodology is to understand, or what the process is to get very clear reports from the banks that you are investing in as to what their policy is around financing big fossil fuel projects or related fossil fuel projects, and whether, that if they're unwilling to do that, would we divert our funds away from those institutions that are not willing to validate where that money is going?
Thank you, Councillor Garad. Ms Hanson.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Garad, it's actually really difficult to actually, one, obtain that information, but two, under this policy, we're extremely limited by where we can invest funds under the Local Government Act. So we're sort of tied a little bit to those big banks, per se, as indicated in the policy. What we can do is we can look at what is published on their website, and there is, I don't have that information on me, but there is a website you can check to see what other institutions don't favour fossil fuels, and we can divert and invest council funds, and that's how we would assess it, based on that website. The other thing is we're further restricted by how much we can invest in certain institutions. So whilst we might favour a fossil less or fuel less institution, we're only restricted by you know, it could be, I'm not sure what the policy limits, I'd have to have a look, but it could be, say, 25%. So once council meets that maximum, we have to diversify and mitigate the risk, so it might mean investing back into the big four. I just hope that clarifies the question. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms Hanson.
Yeah,
Councillor Garad.
thank you so much. Can I just follow up with the question? Given that this is a systems level issue then, if the state government is restricting where you can invest, are we willing then to write to the Municipal Association Victoria and ask them to advocate on behalf of councils to clarify how it is that the state government is going to achieve its climate targets if it is forcing local government to invest in the very industries which it is trying to divest from? So are we able to write a letter to MAV to understand what advocacy work they're doing in this space on behalf of local government, and what they plan to do in terms of raising this issue in the state government, and also the issue of how it is the state government are going to achieve their climate targets if they are driving this behaviour in local government?
I'd be happy to answer that if you like, Michelle.
Thank you, Ms.
Certainly, on behalf of council, I'm happy to prepare a letter in regards to advocating on behalf of the sector, and I'd also will go and advocate to the MAV from a sector-wide point of view. I mean, I'm well aware a whole range of different superannuation funds have exactly the same concerns, and as you know, we're required to meet the requirements under the Act around investments, as Michelle just outlined, and I think the points you raise are really important, especially seeing as this council and many others have declared a climate emergency, so we'll follow that up.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, is there any opposition?
Yeah, I indicate opposition, Mayor.
Thank you. So Councillor Dark in opposition. The mover was Councillor Lim. Yes, so Councillor Lim, as the mover, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you, Mayor. To me, like Mr. Hanson and also the Mayor or CEO already mentioned about all of these things, very difficult to lay out all of these investment about all those coals or whatever, the fossil fuel, whatever. Therefore, to me, probably had to wait for another further, investigation, and they can give a report to Councillor Dark and Councillor Rhonda. Yeah. Yeah, I thought of not deferring, but I support that sort of idea that we can, find out further investigation by Mrs. Hanson. And you're against about that sort of idea. You want to find out, investigate more. Is that Councillor Dark?
So, Councillor Lim,
yep.
Perhaps not directing any questions. We're not in question mode, so you're just speaking to this item. So.
Yeah, I come about, our investments into the fossil fuel, whatever. That's what that's what I said. Now we don't have any clear answer yet until we have to wait for Mrs. Hanson to investigate further, and we can, explain to Councillor Dark. Yeah, we can defer for that. So, I want to defer for that one.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Let me just a moment, councillors. So, Councillor Lim, can I just double check? So, you're asking to defer this. Can I ask for what purpose? And I might also put a question to Ms. Hanson to respond as well.
Yeah, the reason Mrs. Hanson can't give every clear, indication of black and white answer yet, therefore might as well defer that question until she can lay out everything that Councillor Dark and Councillor Garad asking for, and that's for at least easy for both of them to
I think for the most part, Ms. Hanson has responded. Ms. Hanson, would you just? I'm happy to give you an opportunity to respond to that. Councillor Dark, can you please? On
a supplementary, I'll second the deferral if he wishes to.
Well, we haven't decided whether it's. I'm seeking further clarification because I think Councillor Lim might be maybe a little bit confused. I'm not quite sure, but Ms Hanson, could you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, Councillor Lim, just so we're all under the same page here, I'm trying to understand the clarity I've provided is that council can only invest by what the local government indicates under the Local Government Act 2020 on where council can invest funds. So that is black and white at the moment. What's not black and white, or what we wanted to do further, was further advocate to the MAV to promote broader investment in fossil fuel-free investment. So at the moment, deferring the item won't change anything because the restrictions are already in place under the Local Government Act. All we can do is continue to advocate. I'm hoping that provides some clarity to Councillor Lim's question.
So, Councillor Lim, does that clarify things? It doesn't seem like there's any uncertainty from what Ms Hanson is saying. The only extra work is further advocacy.
All right, then that's okay. Therefore, we have to go ahead with that issue then. But I don't know why Councillor Dark and Councillor Garad still against that.
Mayor, point of order.
Because very clearly that...
Councillor Lim, please be seated. Councillor Dark, what is your point of
Mayor,
order?
I wish to move the item of deferral because this is a significantly important policy to the council's operations and our investments, and there seems to be some further information that needs to be teased out regarding that. And when you have councillors that are confused exactly about what it is they're voting on and around the significance of this policy, I think the best thing to happen is for it to be deferred. The questions that Councillor Garad have, that I have, and any other councillors can have a conversation. From a procedural point of view, I would move that this item just be deferred, even to the next council meeting.
Second.
So, well, firstly, that's not a point of order, Councillor Dark.
Sorry, it's a bit...
That's a motion. That's a procedural motion. Okay.
Sorry, the mover have to go first and then seconder, instead of... You can't just...
Point of order.
Okay. All right, hold on a minute.
Point of order.
Councillor O'Reilly, what is your point of order?
It's my understanding that motions for deferment were not procedural motions.
They're not procedural motions.
Correct. So if they are not procedural motions, then the substantive motion has to be dealt with first. It has not been resolved. Councillor Lim has moved the substantive motion, and
it's been seconded.
And it's been seconded. That needs to be dealt with before any subsequent motion, Mayor.
That's true. We need to go back to debate. Okay.
Yep.
The mover has spoken, or maybe hasn't finished.
So, Councillor Lim, have you finished
Just
with
want to
your
mention
statement?
a bit about, the reason, because, very clearly the Mrs. Hanson said that whatever investment of super fund, whatever it is always comply with Local Government Act. Therefore, that's what I thought, is nothing else to answer that. But if Councillor Dark still want to find out what sort of investment, if it's to fossil fuels or to other things as well, probably have to go for the investigation, because I'm honestly a bit confused that part either, because if it's already comply with Local Government Act, what else we have to go ahead for? Yep, thanks.
Why did you move it then?
Councillor Tan, please be quiet.
Yep, you can go.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Lim. Councillor Tan, as the seconder, please speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I seconded this policy. So first of all, just want to say thank you to Michelle, and thanks for your directorate for working so hard to get this done. This is an ongoing, so we review it all the time. So based on Michelle mentioned earlier, so this is based on the Local Government Act. So we can't invest more than the cap based on a state government or local government stated. Okay, so I just want to hear from our opposition, why would you oppose the...
Mayor, just a point of order, just for clarification, just from Councillor Tan. Is Councillor Tan talking in this item as a councillor or as an employee of the Commonwealth Bank? Because I would say that there is a conflict of interest.
No, it's not a conflict of interest.
There is a conflict of interest if we are talking about banking and financing,
and
you're an employee of the Commonwealth Bank of Australia.
It's not a conflict of interest.
Councillor Tan, please be seated.
Mayor, I'm concerned that there is a conflict of interest, or a perceived conflict of interest, as an employee of one of the big four banks, which is itemised in these, as an ADI.
Councillor Dark, I'll put that question to Ms Roberts. Ms Roberts, if you can please respond.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I did have this conversation with Councillor Tan about a perceived or possible conflict of interest, and we discussed it. And the Westpac Bank is a huge bank with many, many employees. We didn't feel that at her level she had a conflict of interest. If she was in upper management or senior management, yes, but she's in customer service, so we don't feel that she has a conflict of interest in this matter.
Thank you, Ms Roberts.
Sorry, can I just say, in terms of conflict of interest, if there's a contract come to the council meeting, I can declare myself, but not in this stage. Okay, so it's nothing to do with conflict of interest.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Tan. So call that not a valid point of order. Thank you, Councillor Dark. But Councillor Tan, have you completed? Okay, thank you. Councillor Dark, as in opposition, would you like to have your few minutes to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Mel will have a chance to speak on this item. Look, I think the investments in this organisation are critical to the funding and the profitability of this council in order to deliver the projects that are expected. Cash investments and investments in property and assets that this council have form a significant part, a significant investment in return that this council has. It is something in the budget that was passed at the last meeting, forms a significant part of the operating expenses and income that this council has. And it's critical that an investment policy that comes forward. Now, whether it is looking at what options are under green bonds, what options there are under any other investment as what's allowed under the Treasury Corporation and the Act, needs to be looked at and properly assessed against the benchmarks to make sure that this council and its ratepayers are having the best return possible. Now, if there is a green fund that does have net zero emissions, invests heavily in the likes of electric vehicles and other companies in that sector and returns a significant profit, I've got no issues with this council investing in it, as long as the council ratepayer dollar is not put at risk. Where I do have an issue is that the policy that is currently being put before us is murky. There's very, very, very minute detail. There's not a whole lot of clarity as to what is the green investment. The conversations coming from one side are that there are the ADIs, the authorised deposit institutions, and those authorised deposit institutions are ones that this council can only invest in. But then those ones that are investing in aren't very clear about where their investments are. The query is about greenwashing and about whether they actually are investing in coal and fossil fuels or whether there are actually decent returns is something that is not very clear at the moment. And I find it very, very, very hard to put and authorise and vote for a policy that potentially could put ratepayers' dollars at risk, that could actually go completely against the whole modus operandi of this council with its climate change push to not actually have the right investments in place. And I think until such time as their policy is made clearer, items are addressed, I can't support this policy.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Are there any other speakers either for or against? Yes, Councillor Garad.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to speak for the motion. I think that the Finance Director has been very clear that she has provided as much information as possible. We do have a policy of prioritising green investments where that information is accessible, and where it is not accessible, we are facing systemic issues where the state government is actually driving us to invest in a limited range of investments, and that information is not forthcoming. So deferring this will not provide more information. It will not give us more clarity. We actually need advocacy at the MAV level to actually advocate to the state government to provide greater guidance and actually expand our options around only investing in green investments as is consistent with our climate emergency policy. So deferring this will not in any way contribute to further information or expand our knowledge, because it is a policy level limitation we are coming up against. So I stand by this, and I think that we should pass this today, and we will, as we've heard from the CEO, further advocacy work will be taken by the Council, and that is right and proper.
Thank you, Councillor Garad. Are there any other speakers either for or against?
Mayor.
Yes, Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand where Councillor Dark is coming from, or his intentions, and his intentions are not bad in that he wants further clarity on the green versus the fossil aspects of the policy. But what I don't like is these sorts of things being raised at literally the last minute, when these sorts of questions, councillors have had considerable time to raise these sorts of questions, and we would then have more time to consider answers. So sort of deciding these things on the spot in a council meeting is not ideal decision making at all. So I think we should support the policy. If the policy is not set in stone, so that if a majority of councillors wish to change the policy, it can come back to council at any time. And when we've all considered the any further questions and information that have been raised by councillors. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Any other speakers, either for or against? Councillor Lim, your right of reply as the mover.
Yep. To me, probably if Councillor Dark not happy with that, we can, probably put for a vote then, Can you do that? Can
it is going to a vote, Councillor Lim, because there is
or otherwise, just probably I support why I, hand up for that policy. But if Councillor Dark still not happy with what you think as a mayor, then for me, I support that strongly, because already I comply with all local government acts or whatever. This policy, what else we have to do then?
Okay. Well, we are putting it to a vote. So that was your.
If still Councillor Dark still insists and not clear, like Mr. O'Reilly already mentioned, Councillor O'Reilly, Councillor Garad already mentioned that the policy is good enough already. We should move forward for that. Why we have to to go any further? Just probably the easiest way, is it?
Okay. Yeah. We are putting it to a vote now.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
you. Councillor Milkovic.
Just a question, Madam Mayor. Does the mover know if he wants to defer this policy or actually put it to vote?
I think
I'm not understanding we're debating it.
The mover has indicated
really
that he would like it to go to a vote. He wants to vote, which is what we will be doing as part of protocol. Okay. No worries. So we will go to a vote now. So all those in favour of this motion, please raise your hand. Councillor O'Reilly, Councillor Troung, Councillor Garad, Councillor Tan, Deputy Mayor Councillor Formoso, Councillor Lim and Councillor Foster. All those against, please raise your hand. Councillor Milkovic and Councillor Dark. As it's 7-4, the item, I declare the item carried. Thank you. Item 4.1.2, review of council policies, fixed asset accounting policy, including disposal or sale of council assets, 2023 to 2024, moved by Councillor Garad, seconded by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 4.2, Other. 4.2.1, Community Support Grants Program 2023, Round 1.
Happy to move that.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Councillor Formoso, seconded by Councillor Tan. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 4.2.2, leave of absence, Councillor.
No, actually, before that, I was about to speak to 4.2.1.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Yes.
All right. You need to be quicker. Go for it. You may speak.
Thank you, Mayor. May I just wish to congratulate the following Keysborough Ward organisations that are based in the Keysborough Ward. The Keysborough Bowls Club for the Raleigh Allen Reserve Community Mural, which has been, I know, a topic that they've been pushing very hard for in terms of being able to revitalise the club and make it look a bit more modern. So congratulations to them for receiving $5,000. To the Australian Indian Innovations, or the AIII, the Festival Diwali of Lights. I know that most councillors in this chamber attend that event. It's always a very well-attended event, generally down at Tatterson Park, and it's always good to see that our multicultural community come out. And then also to the other groups, the Lions Club and other surrounding groups as well, and they're recipients of the awards.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Now we'll move on to 4.2.2, Leave of Absence, Councillor Tim Dark. Moved by Councillor Garad, seconded by Councillor Troung. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried.
Can I make a comment? Our fellow
There's a lot of laughter in there.
dearly missed. Okay, I hope he does enjoy the time off, and the debate is never going to be the same. So, just wanted
We
to
might
say
have
that for the
quicker
record.
meetings.
Thank you.
Could we extend? No.
Councillor Garad, did you have a comment?
In opposition.
Moving on now. Item 4.2.3, list of registered correspondence to Mayor and councillors. Moved by Councillor Garad, seconded by Councillor Tan. Are there any questions? Question?
Yes.
Yes, Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, I note that there's a complaint from a Springvale resident regarding the lack of signage within the number 8 multi-deck car park. And I had the unfortunate experience of actually going in there on the weekend, and there's a lot of confusion about the way in which the direction of travel is since there's been cuts and the insertion of additional ramps. The ramp sort of goes up and around as you're supposed to, but as you come down, there's a shortcut between the two. And I almost had a head-on level 3 in my car by a person that actually came up towards the exit. So there's a lot of confusion about where the signage is and the direction of where traffic goes. I just want to find out from the relevant officer what is being done about the confusion regarding the new layout of number 8.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Dark. So the correspondence from the resident is fairly specific, I think, to regulatory signage within the car park, which I'll work with the Director of City Planning, Design and Amenity to resolve and respond to. But in respect to your particular question about the ramps and directional signage and safety, I'll request our traffic team to do a review of that, and we'll inform you of their advice once that's received. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Any further questions? Yes,
I
Councillor
just
Lim.
want to add on the top of Councillor Dark's. I've received so many complaints and also probably email as well, and plus I asked them to email to our relevant council officer as well. Very confusing, so many got fined, and even our council officer as well got fined, because very confusing about the signage, especially, the no standing or whatever at multi-level car park. They said that very tiny little writing in the corner somewhere they not aware of, and a bit got a fine from our council. They're very unhappy with, thanks for Servant Box there that can review that, and I can take you around our multi-level car park to show where the confusion is all about. Thank you for that.
Okay, so thank you, Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Lim. Yes, we'll follow up on your suggestion to go and visit the car park and have a look at some of those issues and concerns about regulatory signage. And as I mentioned before, I'll work with the Director of City Planning, Design and Amenity to install additional and appropriate signs where required. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Is there any opposition to this item? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. And the item that everyone's here to see, item 4.2.4, tree protection on private land, local law, moved by Councillor Garad, seconded by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions, councillors? Is there any opposition?
Got a question.
Oh, you've got a question. Sorry, I'm moving too quickly. Councillor Tan, what is your question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I've got a few questions through you, Mayor, through the relevant officer. So this is regarding to the policy. Just a question regarding to the permit as well. So with the permit fee, I know that we've been reducing from $120 to $75. Question just regarding to our elderly, we've got a lot of pensioner in our Greater Dandenong who can't afford to pay for the permit. So if there are any exemption for council to introduce a concession card holder, a discount when they apply for permits, so looking to get at least some discount further on that, on top of that. As we did discuss further during our CVS, that we're willing, to get at least 1 year free for all the residents. But if not, then at least we can get some discount further on the permit fee. So that's the first question. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. I'll put that question to Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you to yourself, to Councillor Tan. You're quite right, Councillor. The fee that went out on exhibition, what the proposed fee was 120. There was a discussion everywhere from between that and zero. Ultimately, it was decided to settle on a fee at $75. There is no exemption to the fee, but as in all cases, irrespective of whether it's this particular fee that Council has set, fees for consultation, for pre-applications, for planning permits, etc., officers have discretion on an ad hoc, on a case-by-case basis, to make an exemption to the fee. If it's a hardship case, if somebody cannot afford and needs to, we will make the call, and we've never, I believe, been unreasonable in granting those exemptions. If you don't have a fee at all, then you've got nothing to discuss. There's nothing. There's a free-for-all effectively. And if you have a developer that can afford to come in and probably pay well in excess of $75, I think you're missing out on those opportunities. And the cost to council is considerably more than the amount of money that an application fee recovers. So at $75, it's not, in our view, a prohibitive amount to the majority of those who would be seeking a permit. And for those for whom it is a concern, officers do have the discretion on those case-by-case basis to waive that fee. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Any further questions?
Thank you.
Councillor Tan?
So a question regarding to the policy. This is on page 189. So the tree to be removed from the private land only to facilitate. This is not a reason for refusing the permit. Okay, so the tree to be removed from private land only to facilitate the construction of tennis courts. It could be a pergola, decks, garage, carport, swimming pools, or similar facility, unless a planning permit has been approved, which require removal in order to implement the permit. So my question is, if a resident wants to build a pergola in their backyard, okay, so they have to apply for a permit first, or would they have to apply to remove the tree of the backyard? So which one comes first? It's not that clear in terms of the policy.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, through yourself, Councillor Tan, it says reasons for refusing an application for removal of a protected tree might include. So these are some of the guidelines which might be applicable in the instance where an application is being made. It doesn't say it will be refused, it might be refused. One would have to look at those specific circumstances again, case by case. And if the argument is just simply, I need to put up my pergola and I want to put it up over here, I don't want to put it over there where there is maybe more space in the garden, just need the tree gone, in that case we might well refuse it. It has to be on a case-by-case basis. Just the simple desire to move a tree for an ornamental reason might ultimately end up in the refusal. So I think what we're doing is we're setting out here a clear message, clear guidelines as to what are the sorts of things that might result, that we would take into account where we might say no to a permit. Similarly, on the preceding page of the policy, We've set out the reasons why we might say yes. What are the reasons that we might say yes for the removal? And it gives, I think, a really good, transparent process. In other words, it's not just up to the officer at the bench on the day saying, yes, feel like this is a good idea, or this is not a good idea. These are the parameters, and I think it gives a clear indication. But each application, just as with any form of permit application, is dealt with on the merits of the case as presented on the day. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Thank you, Councillor Tan. Any further questions?
I've got a question.
Yep, Councillor O'Reilly, and then I'll go to Councillor Milkovic.
Thank you, Mayor. Got two questions. Firstly, will these permits be easy to apply for? So will, like our existing permits we've got online, will they be in a similar fashion that people can just put in the information into the website and apply for it that way? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you through yourself. Councillor O'Reilly, the answer is yes. We've had a look at what other councils do. We've learnt lessons from what they've done well, or what they do well and what they don't do so well. We've worked hard at streamlining a system to make it as easy as possible, where we have a template format, and the answer is we will use the online system as efficiently as we can make it and as accessible as we can make it to applicants. So it's not going to be a tortuous and difficult administrative process. There's been a lot of work putting into. We understand the ease of operation becomes one of the issues on whether or not it's going to be embraced by the community, and we believe we've worked hard in making sure that we have given ease of access as an outcome of this.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. Second question is regarding the tree permit decision. If a resident or owner is unhappy with the decision regarding the permit, what recourse do they have in terms of having that decision reviewed? Is that by another party that was not involved in the original permit decision? And how difficult is it to seek that review? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Bosman.
The easiest, through you, Madam Mayor, the easiest part of that question, Councillor, is that ultimately these matters can be brought before VCAT. In terms of the internal process, I guess it depends on where we are in that decision-making process. If there's a recommendation to refuse it and it hasn't yet been decided, that conversation can still be had with the applicant, with the developer, whoever it is that's made the application. But to draw an analogy with a planning permit application, even where a permit has already been issued and an applicant comes in with a live permit and wants to amend a condition in that planning permit, and let's say that that condition is a landscaping condition, to plant a canopy tree in the open space of the approved development, and council officers refuse to go along with and grant a change to that planning permit condition, that could be appealed to VCAT. So there is an appeal mechanism that takes it out of the hands of the officer. Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you, Mr Bosman. Any further questions, Councillor O'Reilly? No. Councillor Milkovic, your question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a relevant officer, in regards to the permit, who actually determines, is there an on-site inspection of the particular tree, and who bears the cost of that, and what will be the turnaround time approximately for the permit to be determined yes or no when it comes to removal? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, through yourself, Councillor Milkovic, every application will result in an on-site inspection. Where an application is being sought for the removal of the tree, not only is it a council officer that will attend the site, but before the application is lodged, part of the supporting documentation is the documentation submitted by the applicant, supported by an arborist's report to say the tree is unhealthy, the tree is dangerous, whatever. So that person will also have attended the site. And then we would be hoping to be able to turn these permit applications out within 5 to 10 working days. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Bosman.
Just a supplementary. Who pays for the arborist to determine what's wrong with the tree or what's right with the tree?
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Bosman.
Madam Mayor, through yourself, Councillor Milkovic, one of the reasons that we did in fact reduce and one of the arguments put to us for reducing the application fee was to help offset the cost that the applicant bears the cost of the arborist's report. And so bearing that in mind, the application fee was reduced. But to go directly to your question, the fee for the report is borne by the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Any further questions, councillors? Is there any opposition?
In opposition, Mayor.
Councillor Milkovic in opposition. Councillor Garad, as the mover, would you like to speak?
Madam Mayor. It's one of my proudest days to be here today, and that's why. Because this has been 3 years in the making. 3 years in the making, tremendous amount of hours, and I congratulate the directors and all those that have worked on this, the outstanding work, the incredibly comprehensive consultation. I thank all of those who spent so much time being part of that consultation process, putting in detailed submissions, doing the work that is involved with being citizens that care about their community. So I thank all of those that are here tonight that have come out on a Monday night, in a cold winter Monday night, to support this. And I think we can see, not just from who's standing here, but also from the results of the consultation, that there is overwhelming support within our community for trees. And you don't actually even have to follow the science to care about trees, because trees actually even increase the value of your property. Trees, as Mr. Bosman said, have physical and psychological health benefits. Our local leader here, Zoe, outlined extensively the enormous benefits of trees. I could be here all night. We could be here all night talking about the enormous benefit of trees. The one thing that we really need to know about trees, and we're talking about trees of substantial size, is that not one of them will grow in our lifetime back to that size. We will all be dead by the time those trees that we chop down will grow back to that size. So it is incredibly important that we save them in the first place. And we know that we cannot plant enough trees on public space, on council-owned space, to in any way arrest the going backwards in our canopy cover. We are going backwards at a phenomenal rate, and that is detrimental to our community, to the aesthetics of our community, to the health of our community. But importantly, we know that this summer we're going to be seeing extraordinary temperatures. Just this week, we had the hottest temperatures that have ever been recorded on this planet, way out of the average zone. And we know that an El Niño has been declared. We know that the temperatures in our ocean right now are unprecedentedly and inexplicably high. We know that there is a culmination of effects right now which mean that we are going to suffer an extraordinarily hot summer. And trees are our best protection. The answer pretty much is always trees. Whatever the question, the answer is pretty much always trees. And for those that are concerned, I would suggest if you are putting up a pergola and you've got a tree there, you've already got a pergola. You already got a pergola there. So there is very limited number of reasons why substantial trees that are contributing significantly to the safety and the health of the community need to be removed. So I urge my fellow councillors to support this in the interests of the health of our community, in the interests of the aesthetics of our community, in the interests of all of the people in this community that care so deeply. And it's great to see some young people here that care so deeply about trees because they are the inheritors of this environment. We are just the custodians. We're just passing through. We are in a state of stewardship for the next generation, and all of these people here today take their role incredibly seriously. And I thank you all once again for being here today.
Thank you, Councillor Garad. Please, if I can ask for silence in the gallery. Councillor Lim, as the seconder, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Garad, as well, and also all the audience tonight. To me, everyone aware very clearly about climate emergency. We aware of that. Our council very low canopy compared to other municipalities. And why can't we, introduce this local law to protect our tree in private land? My house, I rarely cut any tree whatsoever. You know why? I even told business owner in my ward, said 1 child per tree policy. Every business owner, can you grow 1 tree per child? That at least leave the legacy behind in our central ward. At least make our central activity center to become very green, look very beautiful and greenish, and decrease the temperature by at least 2 to 3 degrees during summertime. On the media recently, they talk about the climate going to be very hot next year, and the drought coming back again. All the farmers very worried about that. At the moment, I watched Landline last Sunday. And also, secondly, we have to work very hard on that to grow more tree. Therefore, at least keep our city cooler, greener for our future generation to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lim. Sorry. Maybe after the meeting you can applause. Councillor Milkovic, in opposition, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I rise to oppose this wrongful local law that is wrong on so many levels that I can't even begin to describe. I don't even know where to start or finish. I'm very happy for Councillor Lim that he doesn't cut any trees at his house, but he does live in one of the councils that does not have this protection law, being City of Monash. So I would urge him strongly to attend his local council meetings and try to pass this law in the City of Monash. That'll be the first step to put his money where his mouth is. That'll be a great start. And if I was him, I would be certainly attending all the council meetings at the Monash. Meanwhile, in the city of Greater Dandenong, I am stunned. I am surprised, and I am truly bedazzled that all of my fellow councillors who have had the privilege of looking at some photos that I've earlier distributed, which I will show to the gallery, not that we have to, of City of Greater Dandenong, Dandenong North Ward, taken in 1973, looking towards, and I'm happy to distribute these on, the trees that you are talking about that are on private property, that are on private land, were planted by residents. This idea, this nonsense, an outright lie that this was a magical forest and we came and cut all the trees down to build houses is simply a lie. This was how Dandenong North looked in 1973. It was barren. All the trees were planted by our residents and by our council. They've done a fantastic job. So to do now what this council is proposing, to add yet more pain and suffering to our residents, and most of those residents are pensioners, and I can appreciate the laughs from all the Al Gore supporters and followers and climate warriors who have probably never planted a tree in their life. My residents have, on the other hand. I've spoken to many of them. And out of 226 submissions that Dandenong City Council managed to garner in 3 months' time, I have garnered 100 in less than 3 days on Facebook. So, Madam Mayor, to say that this is going to help us out is simply not true. Now, what this will do is, like any monopoly, like anything that's been determined, like anything that's been actually done in order to favour one group of people, will increase the cost. So to have a $75 permit, and on top of that permit you got a cost of an arborist, who, by the way, has to be a level 3 arborist to conduct an inspection, is a direct cost to our residents. So you've got someone who has bought the property in 1973, built a house, planted a tree and nurtured and pruned the tree for the past 50 years to have the cost of a couple of $100 just to find out if they can knock the tree back in their backyard is outrageous, okay? And the residents of Dandenong North do not support it. On top of that, let me just read here from the officer's email, if you allow me for a second. A permit is not required for pruning as long as the following conditions are met. Where the pruning is carried out by a qualified arborist in accordance to Australian standards, I'm not going to quote the standard pruning of amenity trees, that has to be level 3 arborist. and the arborist has provided their qualifications, and the property owner has kept photographs of the trees before and after the work. Are we in North Korea or in Australia? This is private property. These people have bought houses. They have planted the trees themselves. They have pruned the trees and nurtured the trees for the past 50 years. Okay? Request for an extension, please, Madam Mayor.
Second that.
Seconded.
Thank you. I will try and do it. I could be going on, like Councillor Garad said, all night and all day long. Unfortunately, it was Councillor Garad's proudest moment, my proudest moment, when I witnessed the birth of my 3 children. That was my proudest moment.
Councillor, you've got 2 minutes. Use it wisely.
Further from this, in an emergency where any part of the tree is an immediate hazard to life or property is determined by the minimum AQF level 5 arborist, it may be pruned. So now we're going from level 3 to obtain a permit to level 5 arborist. Yet another cost to the people who have bought this land and who have turned this moonscape into a beautiful suburb, the Dandenong North East nowadays. Same goes for Dandenong, same goes for Keysborough. So, Madam Mayor, my residents are not happy about this. Residents who have actually done something about this are not happy about this. This is just another cost.
Please silence in the gallery. Please.
And to say that this is not going to add any cost in regards to the maintenance of the tree is simply not true. Whenever you mandate something of a certain profession and people have got nowhere else to go, that creates demand. When demand is created, the price goes up. It is simple as that. Thank you. 60 seconds to go and counting. So to say that there's so many flaws within this law that will just add burden, we've seen in the last week's or a couple of weeks ago budget, how much burden this is adding on, and to say that this is not going to add anything else, and the message we're sending we want the trees. No, the message that we're sending to our residents is that we don't care what you've done for the past 50 years, you're not qualified enough anymore, and now we want your money to maintain your own trees on your own private land. For people that want these laws passed, I suggest they should maybe move to a communist/socialist country where everything government owned, and that'll make it a lot easier for them. If you join the ruling party, you'll be more than welcome. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So for that reason, I'm rising to oppose this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovic. Silence in the gallery, please. Are there any other speakers for or against this item? Yes, Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Mayor. I've listened to what everybody's had to say. I'm one that is loath to introduce more rules, regulations for council for getting in people's way. So I certainly gave that a lot of consideration, and along the lines of Councillor Milkovic, who expressed very clearly how people's individual interests are slightly, I think, impinged by the requirement of a permit to remove a tree. But I think, Mayor, on this issue, it's too important. The protection of trees is too important. And when you on balance, what tree permits will provide is the prevention of hasty decisions to cut down trees. So owners will need to pause and consider the importance of the tree before deciding to cut it down. I think the permit also gives more information to councils on why people are thinking about cutting them down, and that's where we can use that in future education. So I certainly concur with the point that Councillor Milkovic made, that it does introduce some hassle or friction to people that are considering cutting down trees, but that is exactly the point. That's that friction that we want so that people are very carefully considering a decision to cut down a tree, because we know that the issue overall is too important. Like, trees are the lungs of our community in many ways. And I think this policy has it right. A permit system is an effective way to balance private property rights with broader community interests, Mayor, and for that reason I commend the local law to the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Are there any other speakers for or against who haven't yet spoken?
Mayor, so I just
Councillor
want
Tan?
to clarify, just to reply to Bob, just regarding to pruning. So in terms of pruning, I believe, through you, Mayor, you can ask the officer to clarify. So in terms of minor pruning, you can also do it yourself. This is, we talk about like a major pruning that need to get, yeah. So I'm just saying like to, yeah.
Excuse me, councillors.
So-
We have Councillor Tan speaking. Out of
So I'm
respect to
just saying
Councillor Tan,
it's-
please be quiet.
So to do with what type of work you're talking about. So not any minor pruning needs to go to a high level. So that's why I just confirmed, okay?
And so to respond to your mumbles over there, Councillor Tan was just clarifying any concerns. I will ask any others who want to speak for or against. Yes, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Formoso.
Thank you, Mayor. Don't even understand how this is a debate, to be completely honest with you. Very, very comprehensive, very, very necessary. I have my children watching me tonight saying, Mummy, you better be protecting our trees. The reason I got onto council is to make decisions like this. This is critical for every single one of us. It's critical for all of the generations that are here after us. Everything that we've done up until this point is due to the fact that everything is telling us that this is what we need to do. Our urban forest strategy is telling us to do it. I got on council when this was at 11% canopy coverage. Okay, I got onto council thinking, wow, that's pretty crazy. It's currently at 9%. So we've declined in the time that I've been a councillor. So I'm not doing my community or the human race justice by not supporting a policy like this. And also, there was 63% people that supported this to begin with. There was 30% that were unsure. And to my fellow councillor Milkovic's point, why are we bringing more laws and more regulations into the system? I was probably one of those that was quite unsure about it to begin with, because I thought, hey, that's a valid point. Why are we trying to enforce people even further on their own property? But the issue here isn't about enforcement, it's about survival. So I absolutely support this, and to my kids who are watching this, I hope they're very proud of me, because I'm doing this for them and all of the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Sorry, silence in the gallery. Yes, Richard, sorry, Councillor Lim, you're unable, because you've spoken, you're unable to speak again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This
Councillor
one is
Troung.
very complex, very hard to make a decision, but, I think that, I support, this project for, this policy. However, I think that because our cities is over 62% overseas bond, therefore we need to make education to let them understand clearly about our policy and not negative and positive spot as well. Thank you.
So, sorry, Councillor Troung, that was a question directed to...
Yeah, I would like to know, does the council have any plan to explain clearly to the people? Because I think over 62% people from our resident is overseas born. Therefore, we need to make something clear for them as well. Because we just based on some survey, something like that in English, and that the disadvantage people could not understand.
Okay.
And
Thank you, Councillor Troung. We did pass the question section, but I will allow the question. So, Mr. Bosman.
Madam Mayor, thank you through yourself. Councillor Troung, the communication and the education and the engagement of the community is probably the absolute single most important element of ensuring the success of this policy. You don't get success through enforcement. It's once the community understands the relevance, the importance, the necessity, the role that canopy trees play, that we will have compliance by virtue of commitment, not because of enforcement. We were talking about, Councillor O'Reilly said, the lungs of the community, or the lungs of the environment. And when you actually start translating that and you explain to people that one canopy tree of a significant canopy tree size supplies enough oxygen for 4 people for 4 days, you're actually talking about the lungs of people. And when you actually get messages out there and you can start relating to the real life impacts about how it can bring down the temperatures, etc. So the answer is yes, this is going to be rolled out, and within our urban forest strategy, within the policy for the protection of trees on private land, the element of community consultation and education forms a very strong part of it, as it did, as I'd mentioned earlier, with the cat curfew as well. All of these things can only succeed if you've properly engaged and fully engaged with the community, and do so on a bespoke basis. We have a very multilingual, multicultural, diverse community, and it's going to take more than just an English postcard on our website to do so. We're going to have to go out there and engage with the community, and I look forward to doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. Right of reply, Councillor. Oh, have you not spoken?
I have not spoken.
Have you not spoken? Oh my goodness, how did I miss that? Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, well, I rise to oppose this item, and I wanted to listen to what the debate was being put forward by other councillors first, particularly to hear, I suppose, what their angle is regarding this policy. I do have concerns with this policy, and I have the concerns with the policy that there are monetary and cash flow issues with this council. There's no question about that within the budget. And to me, this reads by not much more than a money grab, with the way that we are charging $75 per application for applications to look at removing trees. And I think that there will be significant confusion amongst residents in the City of Great Dandenong, residents in my ward as well, and the confusion particularly about what the options, what the risk is, if they cut down a tree without requiring a permit or knowing that they require a permit, the potential infringement that can cost. On top of that, the other additional costs and the stresses that can come into play. And I have real issues in the way that this policy has been properly planned out and consulted with. Now, I note that councils have referred to the fact that there was a significant number of submissions to it. And I do know that one of the people that has made a submission is outside this ward, and I'm sure many of them are outside the boundary of the City of Greater Dandenong, because when I do speak to local residents about it, and when I did speak to a couple on the weekend, they were not aware that it was coming up. So I would argue that our residents probably haven't been consulted properly about it. The consulting with community is one thing. Going out and creating a Word doc survey and then taking that out to residents is a whole other thing. And anybody can skewer the results. We had a discussion about the gendered toilets in the last term on this council, and between myself and Councillor Riley, there was close to, I think, 50,000 votes that we had across the world. So surveys can easily be skewered to one side or the other. And I have concerns that the way that the policy is being put together, the potential penalties and effects that this can have on our residents is quite concerning. Second to that is that the policy that's being put out, there's only 11% of all the councils in Victoria that do have a tree protection policy put in place. Those that do actually have a much less stringent policies, and that includes the cities of Bayside, Port Phillip, Stonnington, Yarra and Hobson's Bay, all which are, I suppose, inner city-centric councils. Generally, they're ones which have a significant amount of canopy coverage, and they have policies in place that are a little bit more lenient. And I find that this is a policy that is being construed, that's been set up, and one that will put a lot of impact and a lot of confusion on our residents. And that is why I will not be supporting this tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. I'd just like to seek some clarification from the relevant officer on the consultation process, because I believe that it has been quite a heavy process for the officer's team. Can you please clarify, Mr. Bosman, about the consultation process and how that went about, please?
Madam Mayor, thank you to yourself. It was an incredibly rigorous process undertaken over quite a period of time, say from the 13th of February to the 31st of March. And if you want, I'll take you through that element of the report. And it's a long list, so it's probably worth reading. On the Have Your Say survey, we got 226 responses. We had 3 drop-in sessions held at Dandenong, Springvale and Keysborough. It was in the Council News magazine. We had A5 flyers distributed via our mailing list for those that are on our variety of mailing list. Distribution of colour posters, advertising on interactive screens within the Dandenong and Springvale civic centres, targeted social media, media releases, and a variety of media outlets, information and a separate survey on Council's website, different meetings, meeting attendance and presentations at organisations, and then we had direct engagement with community groups. We went to the Community Strengthening Directorate. We asked them for their contacts, the community contacts, and we went out and we engaged directly with the Council's local partnership monthly meeting group, the Bunurong people, the Youth Support and Advocacy Services, otherwise known as YSAS, the Afghan Australian Women and Youth Organisation, Afghan Australian Association of Victoria, the Victorian Afghan Association Network, Eastern and Central African Communities of Victoria, Federation of South Sudanese Associations in Victoria, the Arkan Rohingya Community of Australia, Cambodian Association of Victoria, Southeast Melbourne Vietnamese Association, Chinese Association of Victoria, Vietnamese Catholic Families Mutual Association. Nightwood Lost Dogs Home, Australian Animal Protection Society, believe me or not, they also have interest in these things. Victorian Referral Hospital, local veterinary clinics, the animal management. We went to all of these groups. We engaged directly with them. We have the strong basis then, having consulted them and having explained to them what it is that we're consulting on. We also then have a really good platform with which to now go back out into the community and use those same platforms, those same engagements for education. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman, for that clarification. Now that everyone has spoken, I will move on to Councillor Garad for your right of reply.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry that Councillor Milkovic is bedazzled by this policy, because I think it's pretty straightforward, but I would say that the evidence that he has shown that this is what Dandenong looks like is actually the strongest argument for this policy, because that's what it will look like. And the fact that the residents chose to tree that area shows how much his residents actually care, because this is actually one of the most beautiful places in Dandenong, Outlook Drive. I don't know if you know it, but it's one of the most treed areas in Dandenong. So Councillor Milkovic's residents really, really strongly support trees. They planted them, they nurture them, they know that it adds value to their environment and to the cost of their properties, and they know that it's very, very important. So I thank Councillor Milkovic for providing this photo, because it actually is the best evidence, the best support for this policy that he could have provided. We heard from Councillor Dark that the data is rigged, which is a serious and unfortunate accusation. We know that the integrity of this council is very strong. We heard...
Sorry, point of order.
Sorry, Councillor Garad, please be seated. Councillor Dark.
Mayor, a comment has been made by Councillor Garad that I have said that the data was rigged. All I said was that there is possibilities that the data is not continuing of all the residents within this municipality, and that there could easily be the chance of those people that have acquired in this survey, that there are people who potentially are not our local residents who have submitted. I have no way said that it's rigged and that people have submitted false reports and stacked it one way or the other. So I'd ask Councillor Garad to withdraw that remark that it's rigged, and I've claimed that it's rigged.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. I will claim that as a valid point of order. Please retract that
comment. But to cast aspersions on the integrity of the process, and we heard that the process was incredibly comprehensive. And in fact, I don't know that we've had so much community input into many policies. And I have full faith, absolute faith, that the officers that conducted this did so with integrity and competence, and we can rely on this data. All we have to do is look around to see how many residents supported this. We have it conflated with gendered toilets and issues that seem to be very far from what we're actually talking about. We also heard that it's a money-making exercise, and I would think that our CEO would be very pleased that if it only was, if $75 for between 2 and 70% of trees would fix all our money woes, I think you'd be pleased to hear that. But unfortunately, I've got bad news for you. It's barely going to cover costs. So we know that none of that is true. What we do know is true is that people care about trees. Young people care about trees. We all understand the importance of trees. This has been a long time coming, too long. 3 years we have waited for this. This is one of the most important policies we will pass in the life of this council. I am so proud of the council and the work that they have done. I'm so proud of the community. I'm so proud of all the councillors that have spoken in support of this today. This is a proud moment for us, and I think we should celebrate that, and I thank you all.
Thank you, Councillor Garad. Please, once again, silence in the gallery. I feel like a school teacher today. We will take this to a vote. So all those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Councillor O'Reilly, Councillor Troung, Councillor Garad, Councillor Tan, Deputy Mayor Councillor Formoso, Councillor Lim and Councillor Foster. All those against, please raise your hand. Councillor Milkovic, Councillor Dark. So that is 7 for and 2 against. So I declare this item carried. I will allow a round of applause. Okay, and now I'll ask for silence, please. It's obviously a topic that many people are passionate about, and this is democracy. Item 5, notices of motion. Item 5.1, notice of motion 31, preparedness of impacts of climate-related events in summer 2023 to 2024. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Garad, seconded by Councillor Troung. Are there any questions, councillors? Yes, Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. May I have a question to the Councillor Garad, I suppose. Given the items, look, I understand exactly where you're coming from, but I just want to itemise the way that the notice of motion has been put in, and I was only sieged with this week. The issue I've got, particularly around the forecast of weather events, certainly is skewered towards a heat zone, given that we're expecting, I imagine, a dry heat run. But in the event that we have what we had this summer, where we had no summer and we had a torrential amount of rain, whether the notice of motion also takes into account the water retention within the city of Great Dandenong and the flooding, because I know during the summer that we didn't have that certainly there was a significant amount of water that caused a lot of damage to local assets and infrastructure, and also the issues around the growth within our parks and playgrounds as well. Whether Councillor Garad's motion also incorporates flooding and water issues.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Councillor Garad, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, currently it doesn't, because we know that we have flipped to an El Nino event, and we know that heat. But I am exceedingly happy if Councillor Dark wants to amend it and extend that to flooding events. I'm more than happy. The purpose of this is to make sure that the council is prepared for what happens in extreme climate events. Right now, we're not sure. We're not sure what the policy is. We're not sure what the procedure is. We're not sure how the residents will be made aware that there is an event. We're not sure how they'll be transported to cool zones. We're not sure where the cool zones are. We're not sure how many vulnerable residents we have. We're not sure about almost anything in relation to how this council would respond to a likely, increasingly likely, and as I said, we had the hottest temperatures ever experienced on this planet in 100,000 years just this week. So this is a likely occurrence. We need to be prepared at a local government level. That is our role. We need to have clarity. We need to know, as councillors and as a community, we all need to know what this council will do to protect us all and we're expecting very extreme events. However, you know, I'm happy. It's very likely that we'll have extreme storm events, and that may entail flooding events. So if an amendment, or you know, if Councillor Darks would like to extend it to that, I'm very happy to do that. I think what is actually going to come back in the report is a complete picture of our emergency response in the event of extreme events. So I think that it will encompass that, even though it doesn't specifically say that. But I'm more than happy if Councillor Dark wants to make an amendment.
Councillor Dark?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, that was what I was just trying to seek clarification, because I know it does say the expected extreme climate events. If we put in, I don't know, an additional item under 1H, that the notice of motion in the report encompasses all extreme weather events, whether it be flood or heat or water-based. I don't know. I'm open to...
So, Councillor Garad, you're happy to approve that? Yeah. Okay. And yes, Ms Roberts?
No, I'll just let you know that, through you, Mayor, the point 3 says that a couple of emergency response events will inform the report back, and one of those is the CR group, which is a process that identifies the biggest risk to council, which include heatwave, major flood storm events, pandemics, and also anything to do with large factory incidents as well. So it just about covers the whole gamut of things, and I don't think that the officer responding to this report will leave anything out.
However, in light of Councillor Duck's suggestion, I'm very happy, and I believe the secondary is also happy to support that, so we're happy to extend that wording.
Okay, thank you. Yes, question? Councillor Tan?
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to find out, do we have to input any costing to do the report, or any financial...
No, Madam Mayor, we've already had a look at this and it's fine. It's covered within existing budgets.
Thank you, Ms Weatherall. Thank you, Councillor Tan. Any further questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Councillor Garad, as the mover, would you like to speak?
So I would just like to thank my fellow councillors for supporting that. I think it's really important that we start to really mentally prepare for what is coming at us. That's really all we can do at this stage, and I think it's incredibly important that we start to get down to the detail. We need to make sure we're ready, and there is no excuse if we find ourselves in this situation and we have not done this work. So I thank all of the councillors for supporting this today.
Thank you, Councillor Garad. Item 6, reports from councillors, delegated members and councillors' questions. Councillor O'Reilly, I might start with you. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just make a report on the Dandenong Historical Society anniversary that I attended with yourself. Was really interesting. Was something that you can't get just by staying at home and watching television. Went through quite there's a number of presentations, went through quite a bit of unusual history of Dandenong. I thought it was really worthwhile, and I congratulate the Historical Society and the leadership on that event, and good to see that they were going strong. And I did mention that you were there as well. Mayor, that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor Troung.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My thing is the last 2 weeks, I keep on to distribute out to help our council distribute out the red tag kits and also face mask. And on the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th of July, I provide to help the council provide over 46,000 test kits and also 5,900 face masks and also some sanitizer as well. And after that, I make the report to them, to email back to them about the list of all the business which I provide to like the medical doctors, pharmacists, and also some shop. And let them know about the contact detail, like the contact person wants out the phone number and address. Maybe if they can drop at my milk bar again to delivery one next time, or they can delivery direct by themselves. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Troung. Councillor Garad.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My first question tonight relates to an Age article that was published on the last Friday regarding the Keysborough South rezoning, where it was purported that the council has said that we have accepted the sporting hub land that is being proposed to be given to the council by the developer who seeks to develop the land currently within the Green Wedge. Can the council clarify the decision-making process for accepting this gift from the developer? And specifically, I am interested in knowing when this decision was made and by whom.
Thank you, Councillor Garad. Mr Bosman.
Madam Mayor, thank you through yourself. Councillor Garad, 3 questions and I'll answer them then separately. Firstly, it's relevant to note that no decision has been made that council has accepted. In fact, I've got it written here as a double negative, so it made no, but as no decision has been made and that council has not accepted the club's proposal or the club's offer of land to Banghome. It remains at this stage a proposal by the club. It is completely independent of and separate to the club's proposed rezoning, and it will be dealt with in due course and with due process, should that remain a proposal from the club for consideration still in the future. In respect of the second question, which is considering the significant...
Mr Bosman, I don't think Councillor Garad has asked the second question yet.
Is that the second part? That's right. Obviously, Mr Bosman would like to get home early tonight, I think. So if you want to just read all the answers...
No, I'm glowing I'm in the afterglow still.
We'll all just go home early. My second question is relating the same issue with the rezoning and the Green Wedge. I seek to understand that the usual procedure for accepting land in this situation, particularly given that the proposed land is closely situated next to the urban floodway zone. Is it customary for us to proceed with land acceptance without conducting feasibility, hydrology, environmental and cost assessments?
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Bosman.
Madam Mayor, that second question comes as a surprise. In due course, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor, in due course, should the club's proposal of the land and infrastructure progress to the point of council considering taking it up, all due diligence, including the hydrology, environmental and cost assessments mentioned by Councillor Garad, will form part of the process, as part of the process of bringing a recommendation with a report to council for the council, that is, to ultimately decide.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. I believe there's a third question. Councillor Garad.
Strangely, you must be psychic, because there is. In that same Age article, Mr Bosman mentions that despite accepting the gift of the land, which was reported, the council has not yet made a decision on whether it will support the rezoning application. Can Mr Bosman clarify, in the interest of clarity and transparency, what is the specific criteria upon which the council will make a decision as to whether to support or not the rezoning application?
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you through yourself, Councillor Garad. Any future application by the club to shift the urban growth boundary and any related proposed rezoning would be expected to include a number of supporting report and analyses, including a range of environmental, traffic, transport, civil infrastructure, responsibilities for providing both social and civil infrastructure, and that's in terms about the responsibilities, who does what and pays for it. Council officers will assess these at the time and where it needs to will engage the services of the necessary consultant expertise to assist if that is not available in-house. The process of assessment is usually a lengthy and iterative one, which can take years to finalise, often requiring the rework of supporting documentation or the submission of further information. The process requires that reports are presented to open council at particular stages, and ultimately the decision on whether or not to support a change to the urban growth boundary or whether or not to support a rezoning is taken by resolution of Council. As previously advised, there is currently no application documentation lodged on either the proposal to move the urban growth boundary, which is a decision for the state government. As you know, it's a decision that requires approval by both houses of Parliament, and there's neither a proposal, there's no documentation to rezone the golf club either. But that gives you an indication of what we would need to be going through and be looking for should an application be lodged. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Garad.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify my understanding, so that if the reports came back unfavourable to outcomes in terms of environmental, hydrology, social and a broad range of metrics, then the recommendation would be made to Council not to support the rezoning. Is that correct?
Thank you. Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, if all of those things were unfavourable, I don't see how that would be, one would come up with a recommendation to go ahead with it. At the end of the day, you're never going to get 100% on everything, and there's always going to be trade-off and competing agendas, if you will, or competing interests. But at the end of the day, the sum of all things within the proposed rezoning would need to show that there's a community benefit in order to support it.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Garad.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My next question relates to the Keysborough South Shopping Centre pedestrian access. I would like to request an update on the proposed pedestrian overpass connecting Albuquerque Avenue to the Keysborough South Shopping Centre on Hutton Road. I have three parts, and I'll ask this at once and get the one response so that we can all save time. Could you please confirm the planned location of the pedestrian overpass? At what stage is the design process currently? Have any discussions or decisions been made with Melbourne Water? And what is the timeline on the finalisation?
Thank you, Councillor Garad. Mr Van Boxtel, please.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Garad, for your question. I will respond to each part. The exact location of the pedestrian bridge connecting Abercrombie Avenue to the shopping centre is still being determined. We anticipate that this is likely to be close to the bend on Abercrombie Avenue, and that it will connect to a new path which runs south towards Hutton Road, and that will then ultimately connect to the eastern side of the shopping centre. Our officers have reached out to Melbourne Water, who own the land, to discuss this project, but detailed discussions are yet to occur. Until these discussions take place, we will not be able to accurately estimate delivery timelines for the new pedestrian connection.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Garad.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My first question for tonight, through you, Mayor, through the relevant officer, could you please give me an update on the Lana streetscape project? There's some underground work complication that's happened a few weeks ago, so any upgrade on this project yet? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. Mr Van Boxtel, please.
Yeah, through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Tan. The Leonard Avenue streetscape works are progressing. We've addressed the underground services issues that was delaying works on the western side of the street, and all of the footpath and car parking is now reopened to public use on that side of the street. There's still some remaining works with public lighting and street furniture that will cause some limited disruption, but the bulk of the main concerns raised by the traders in that location have been responded to. However, we do have another side of the street still to complete, which is the east side of the street. The contractor is starting there this week. And we've been working very closely with the contractor and the traders to try and come up with a staging scenario that minimises the impact on the loss of parking and maintains the width of the footpath to its maximum for as long as possible. So we're hopeful that those new arrangements we've put in place will mean less disruption to the traders' customer base. However, staging of the works in the way we're now considering is likely to add a small length of additional time to the project, but we think that the merits of retaining more parking will be ultimately beneficial to the traders. So we're underway accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Tan.
Thank you. My second question, just regarding to the Corrigan Road, Hawthorne Road traffic light. So in the meantime, there's no work actually happen at the moment. There's a traffic light, but then there's no work for a few weeks. So is any update on this project?
Thank you, Councillor Tan. Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor. Sorry, Councillor Tan, just update on the...
The Corrigan Road, Hawthorne, traffic light that's been ongoing. So at the moment, there's no work happening since the last few weeks, so I'm not sure what's going on. Is any progress on this project at the moment?
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Tan. I'll have to take that question on notice and follow that up with the relevant officer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Tan.
Thank you. Lastly, I just want to, this is the information inform about the Noah Park Community Safety Forum. So it will be conducted on the 25th of July, July 2023, which is from 6:30 to 8:30. So I just want to, in terms of advertising through us, our council, just need to know from the relevant officer, have you done any? I know I've seen some ad on the Facebook. Anything else can be put forward? Because I know that's a lot of people in our Greater Dandenong doesn't really speak, English. So it would be great if you can have a translation. So put on a website. At least we can inform all the residents to attend, to come along. The safety forum will be held at the Paddy Ordinary Centre. So it's from the actual address on the 18 to 34 Buckley Street, Noble Park. So I did inform our officer to add it on the fly as well. So it'd be great if we can advertise mainly through our website or the community centre or the library. So at least residents knew more about this. Okay, thanks.
So I'll put that question to Ms Roberts. Councillor Tan.
Thanks, Councillor Tan, for the question, and through you, Mayor. We were talking to the CEO just today about doing some translations, and they'll be out and about by the end of the week. There's some flyers up in the building now. It was advertised in the Council News for July, so it is in there, but it's in English, of course. But the translations will be ready by the end of the week and out and about. It's also on our socials and also on our website. So there'll be more information in different languages out by the end of the week. But as far as in English goes, it's everywhere that it can be at this point in time.
Thank you, Ms Roberts. Any further questions, Councillor Tan? No. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Formoso.
Thank you, Mayor. Busy times as always. One of the fantastic events that I had the pleasure of attending was the Sister Works fundraiser, which was celebrating Refugee Week here at the very new Holiday Inn, which was sensational. The new facilities there are absolutely incredible. The organisation is obviously doing great work, and I do apologise. We were gifted a wonderful certificate for all of our contribution, but I unfortunately left it at home, so I'll give that to you at a later stage, so I do apologise. And also wanted to congratulate SEL's first year of operations. They've just passed their first official year of operating, and they're doing a fantastic job at looking after all of our facilities and improving our physical outcomes in this community, which I'm obviously very passionate about, and I'm very proud to be on the board as a council representative. A couple of questions tonight. I got invited to a senior citizens group last week at, and I'm embarrassed to say that I've never been to Memorial Hall here in McRae Street, which is not in the best of conditions, to say the least. There's some basic cosmetics that could definitely be done there. I don't know when we last did any maintenance at the facilities, but very simple things, even like a hand soap dispenser, those sorts of things aren't actually there. So really would like the appropriate officer to let me know when we can have a look at that and improve that. And in actual fact, we've got the public toilets, which are right next door to the hall. And so not only do the senior citizens need to use those toilet facilities, it's obviously for public use, and they're probably the worst toilets that I've seen in our municipality. So, and I've got photos, which I will send to the relevant officer, but it is one that definitely needs a bit of a facelift and things, basic things like not even having toilet paper and those sorts of things there. So if the relevant officer could just respond regarding that one, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Ms Gillies, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Formoso. We'll certainly look into that, depending on what the specific lease arrangements are for the property. There'll be different roles and responsibilities in terms of council and our tenants. That said, obviously we want to make sure that the amenities for the community are appropriate, so we'll look into that.
Thank you, Ms Gillies. Deputy Mayor Formoso.
Thanks, Ms Gillies. Another one that's come up on my radar is Dandenong North East Kindergarten. I can't tell you the amount of times that I get messages about the amount of drug paraphernalia, rubbish, and they even found faeces in the car park there this morning when the staff were going to park their vehicles to start the day with the kindergarten students. So you can imagine how disgusted they are with what is happening in this space. The council did a brilliant job at resurfacing the footpath works there. That was fantastic. But in terms of patrolling, they did say that they have seen a lot more. Bless you. They did say they have seen a lot more police patrolling in the area. However, there are a lot of issues still happening in the area, and I did ask Council for us to look at putting a mobile CCTV camera there, and I was told that we were not in a position to do so, but that maybe, bless you again, you're allergic to my report. And I did ask for VicPol to perhaps look at putting a camera there on our behalf, and our officers were going to get back to me in terms of letting me know whether that was a viability, if it was going to happen, when it's going to happen. That hasn't yet occurred, and I do kind of think that it probably does need to occur at some point because it can, and I was told also by council that there was a privacy issue because of the fact that the kindergarten's there, but the way that we place the cameras and position the cameras would prevent any visibility of the kindergarten itself. It's what's occurring outside of the actual kindergarten car park, and it's very hidden. If the appropriate officer could respond in terms of what we could do in this space would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Ms Gillies, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Formoso. Firstly, what I would say is that if anyone has ever got local members of the community or from community groups, kinders, calling up with an issue there and then, please let us know straight away, and we can get the cleansing team out there to make sure that the premises are clean and safe and secure. We have actually spoken to VicPol already about increasing patrols in that area, which I believe has occurred. I'm not aware of the previous request re CCTV, but certainly we can look into that. I do know, however, that the CCTV trailer that local police use is certainly getting a lot of usage. So we'll check where that is in terms of the priority listing, and I do agree they certainly can place them in a way that doesn't actually impinge on people's privacy as well. So we can look into that. But again, I would just stress if constituents are calling up with issues on the day, it's best that they call straight through to council through that process so that we can get the cleansing team to respond straight away, so that obviously their staff and families don't have to experience that sort of welcome upon arrival.
Thank you, Ms Gillies. Deputy Mayor Formoso.
Thanks, Ms Gillies. Appreciate that, and I will do that. I just think they find it much easier to go through straight to councillors because they often get a bit of a runaround through the customer service process. So I appreciate that, and if I could just urge that we do a bit of a cleanse at some stage tomorrow, which is a little bit urgent because faeces and those sorts of things would be a bit unpleasant for the staff and the parents dropping off their kids. Otherwise, that's all from me, so thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my first question this evening, I had a phone call from a resident in Piccadilly Crescent in Keysborough. Got a bubble in my throat. In Keysborough, and they have issues with the footpath at the front of their property. There's a big tree that's got substantial root system that's caused quite a bit of damage. There's upheaval and there's bent angles. Now, there was an auction, I believe, on the weekend of a neighbouring property just next door, and a person tripped over basically at the end of the auction because of the way the footpath is. Can we please get the relevant officer to go out and have a look? I believe it's centred in the vicinity of 44 Piccadilly Crescent in Keysborough.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Mr Van Boxtel?
Yeah, through the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Dark. We'll get that location inspected and take appropriate action to address any tripping hazards if they warrant that work being done. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my next question is from one of the residents in the Domain Estate off Stanley Road in Keysborough. At the back, there's been, I know I've raised on multiple times, there are some substantially large gum trees that have been put on Melbourne water land that do overshadow several properties, and Council does provide financial remuneration for those residents to clean their gutters out. I note, and I've had a call, that there is a significant amount of branches that have just been dumped right next to the tree as they're being cut back. The trees, from what it appears to be, they were cut back somehow and then basically just been dumped. If we could please have those branches collected, that would be great.
I'll put that to Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Dark. We'll investigate that further. If the branches, I presume, are on Melbourne water land, it may be their responsibility, but if it's not, if it's Council's responsibility, we'll address it accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Dark.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. My next question is regarding the Liverpool Drive resurfacing works. They started about 6 months ago to resurface the road and reline it. The road had basically had a significant amount of crocodile cracking along the street, and then also just the infrastructure was just getting past its use by date. Now, there's been a lot of resurfacing that was done up the north end towards Darren Road, but on the south end, closer to Beauvorno, there still has not been completed months and months later. There's a lot of impact. The lines haven't been marked. The gravel is easily picked up with cars driving by, and it just looks a whole lot worse for wear. Can we please get an update on, I suppose, where the roadworks are up to, when the estimated completion is going to be, and if we could please notify the residents in and around Liverpool Drive of exactly where things are up to as well, because I have had it's been raised a few times with me recently.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Van Boxtel.
Through the Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Dark. We'll follow that up. It may be to do with the weather conditions we've been having. The wet weather, I think, has delayed some of the final surfacing of some of our roads. But, yeah, we'll get an update on that and see if we can get some sort of notification out to the local residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Van Boxtel. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, my final question is regarding the building department within Council, I suppose also the Municipal Building Surveying Department. I was sent a video over the weekend by actually two different people, by a person who uses social media. They're a registered building inspector that dresses up, and they attended a site on Princess Highway just past the Save More Clearance Centre that was developed a couple of years ago by a prominently known Dandenong builder. From that, the building is in substantially poor state. That video then subsequently has ended up on LinkedIn. There's a lot of commentary regarding what is happening with, I suppose, the compliance to and approvals of these building projects. This is a large townhouse development where the box gutters have been cut into, the drainage points aren't there, and there's a lot of build-up of issues obviously with the development building quality there. I just want to find out what happens once a building surveyor itemises a report, and then once we become aware that there are issues, what does this council undertake in terms of the municipal building surveying strategy to deal with the issues? And then also, do we have any enforcement powers to then have those works rectified?
Thank you, Councillor. Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Mayor, Councillor, we can certainly have our municipal building surveyor inspect, and in short, yes, they do have enforcement powers, and they can take the matter away from the private building surveyor. They can instruct the private building surveyor. Obviously, the first step in all of this is for them to do an assessment on site and then decide which powers under the Act they would then utilise and what orders, if necessary, can be issued. So if you'll provide me with all of the relevant information, I'll ensure that our municipal building surveyor visits the site and then takes the necessary action.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Dar.
Thank you, Mayor. No further questions.
Thank you. Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Mayor. Just as usual, very busy for the last fortnight. Monday, the 26th of June, I had a meeting with our CEO and also Mr. Meng Hieng Tax, our MP, and also our former pharmaceutical director regarding to our shape of Springvale that Mr. Premier promised us to do something for our Springvale Activity Centre. On Tuesday the 27th, of June, I have meeting with Director of Monash Health, Ron Fairchild, and plus his team, just regarding to the future of our fundraising. First of all, probably flower ceremony at the temple, secondly, dinner dance, and also just provide him some money that we raised for the last 2 months. Yeah, we raised about nearly $4,500. And Wednesday, the 28th of June, a meeting with Mr. Patrick Lee. He's advisor of Julian Hill, Member of Parliament, advisor regarding to voice to Parliament. And that's good that Julian Hill asked him. Actually, I really amazed him. He's a real Australian, but speak Cambodian fluently. And also he translates voice to Parliament in Cambodian language as well for my community. And also on the Friday, the 30th of June, I had lunch on with the Honourable Anthony Albanese, our Prime Minister, hosted by Australian Israel Chamber of Commerce at the Crown Palladium. On Tuesday, the 4th of July, I attended fundraising vegetarian dinner for rebuilding the Bright Moon Temple with Honourable Claire O'Neill, and also with Mr. McHeng Tech and myself. On Wednesday, the 5th of July, I had an interview with SBS regarding to COVID again, cold and flu, and there's so many other issues. And also on that night, we have so many issues in our program as well about endometriosis, COVID, and so on and so on. On the Friday, 7th of July, I attended 42nd anniversary of Spring Way Italian Senior Citizen Club with our Mayor, Councillor Eden Foster. That's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Lim. Councillor Milkovic.
And nothing for tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Milkovic. I'll just briefly give my report for the past 2 weeks. So over this time, I've attended quite a few meetings. I've had the Multicultural and People Seeking Asylum Advisory Committee meeting, the Mayoral Task Force Supporting People Seeking Asylum meeting, which is a great opportunity following the Canberra trip, where many of us met with federal ministers to then, come together to discuss our discussions with those federal ministers in relation to the Mayoral Task Force and our advocacy. So it was a good opportunity to hear from the other mayors and councillors on the task force, and to build again that task force even further. I also attended the community food outreach service at the Dandenong Presbyterian Church, where they hand out food, like many of our wonderful organisations in our community. They've recently started, or just late last year, handing out food and other items to those less fortunate on a Thursday between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. And I guess given the times that we are in, or our community is in financial struggles, we are seeing more and more people needing these items and needing some support. So I guess spare a thought for our neighbours, our community members, and perhaps even considering if you do have any non-perishables left over that you can donate to the number of community organisations in our municipality. I think a lot of them are stretched, and a lot of them are finding that there is a greater need, particularly at this moment. Also attended, as was mentioned by Councillor O'Reilly, the Dandenong and District Historical Society 60th birthday celebrations, and again a wonderful opportunity to hear so many stories about the history of Greater Dandenong. I do love to sit down and have a chat with people who know a lot about our community, and I love listening to stories. Just ask my mum when I sit around, when I was little, sitting around the table with all the adults, hearing the wonderful stories of the past, and that certainly hasn't changed for me. I do love a bit of history. We also celebrated NAIDOC Week and attended an event hosted by the City of Greater Dandenong and the Dandenong Market with a couple of my fellow councillors, Councillor Garad and Councillor Long. Again, another opportunity to celebrate our Indigenous history, which makes our country very special. And also attended the Druce community event celebrating Eid al-Adha, a wonderful community who is soon to be opening their community centre. Were able to celebrate in their centre. They're still waiting on certain facilities, but I'd like to thank the council also for giving them a permit for that day for that celebration. And also attended the Springvale Italian Senior Citizens Club 42nd anniversary. We share a bit of a birthday, 42, which was kind of a special connection there. But the Italian community in Springvale have certainly contributed a lot to our municipality over the years. So, and again, more stories to tell and more stories to listen to for someone who's a history nerd, I suppose, for want of a better word. Well, I'll leave that there, and I will then ask the CEO if there are questions from the previous meeting to be tabled.
Yes, Madam Mayor, and they'll be attached to the minutes.
Thank you, Ms Weatherall. And item 7, urgent business. As there's no urgent business tonight, I will declare the meeting closed at 9 past 9 p.m. Thank you, everyone, and good night.